It speaks in presence, in silence, in tension, in unconscious gestures and subtle signs. And for many men, this silent love is the only love they've ever known how to express. We live in a society where many men have been taught that love should be controlled, concealed, or channeled into actions rather than emotions. From an early age, boys are often conditioned to believe that vulnerability is weakness, that emotional openness makes them less masculine, less powerful. The phrase "I love you" becomes loaded, risky, even dangerous to their identity. So they learn to love in silence, to care deeply but say nothing, to feel without declaring. But that doesn't mean the feelings aren't real. On the contrary, they are often more real than anything else. They simply live underground, in the unconscious. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychoanalyst, described the unconscious as the place where we store what we cannot yet face or fully integrate into our conscious awareness. And for many men, that's where their love lives, unacknowledged, unspoken but alive. Jung believed that these hidden parts of ourselves don't vanish just because we avoid them. On the contrary, they surface in disguised forms: dreams, slips of the tongue, body language, habits, and instinctive reactions. In this way, a man's love, even when not consciously admitted, still shows up. It leaks through the cracks of his carefully built armor. So how can you tell? How can you know if he feels something for you, even if he doesn't say it? The answer lies in a more ancient language, older than words, more honest than declarations. The language of the body, of energy, of unconscious behavior, of actions that contradict words. And when you learn to see through this lens, you begin to notice the truth, that many men who seem distant or indifferent are actually hiding a great deal of emotion, not because they don't care, but because they care more than they know how to handle. Let's explore the first and most revealing sign of this silent love: his gaze. They say the eyes are the windows to the soul, and in many ways, this is true. The gaze of a man who loves, truly loves, even if he hasn't realized it yet, is different. It's not loud or obvious. It's not practiced or intentional. It's raw, and once you notice it, you can't unsee it. It's the way his eyes linger just a little too long when he looks at you. The way he holds your gaze, or sometimes avoids it entirely. Not out of disinterest, but because it stirs something vulnerable in him. There's a kind of intensity in his look that sets it apart from the way he looks at anyone else. It's as if he's searching for something in you. Or perhaps seeing something in you that touches a deep part of him. In Jungian terms, this may be connected to the projection of the anima, the inner feminine aspect of a man's psyche. When a man sees a woman who resonates with this inner image, he feels inexplicably drawn, emotionally activated, even if he doesn't understand why. His gaze becomes a bridge between his outer self and the deeper, emotional truth stirring within. Sometimes he looks at you with awe, sometimes with tenderness, sometimes with a mix of confusion and wonder, as if he's trying to understand why your presence affects him so deeply. And paradoxically, this emotional intensity can make him look away. For many men, direct eye contact, especially with someone who exposes their inner world, is uncomfortable. Looking at you might make him feel too seen, too vulnerable. So he may glance at you briefly, then retreat into distraction. But even this avoidance is a sign. It means you matter. You may notice him watching you in quiet moments, when you're not speaking, when you think no one is watching. Maybe you catch him looking at you across a room, and he quickly shifts his attention, pretends to be focused elsewhere. But for that moment, something genuine happened, something unscripted, and that's where truth often lies. In the accidental, the unintended, the unconscious expressions that reveal more than words ever could. These are not flirtatious looks. They are not calculated or seductive. Often they're filled with hesitation, uncertainty, even insecurity. But they carry weight. They speak. Because in those moments, he's not performing. He's simply feeling. And his gaze reflects the part of him that's awakening to love, perhaps before he's even ready to name it. The second sign of this unconscious love is just as quiet, but just as powerful: his presence. He may not send you flowers or write you long messages, He may not declare his feelings in romantic speeches, but he shows up. When it matters most, he is there, especially in the hard moments, the ones where even you don't know what you need. Somehow he just knows to be there, not because you asked, not because anyone told him to, but because something inside him tells him that he should. And this is not an act of obligation. It's instinct, it's care, it's love that has not yet found the courage to speak, but has already learned how to act. He might not know how to express emotion in words, but he shows up with a warm meal when you're exhausted. He checks in without being prompted. He helps without being asked. He listens, really listens when others would talk over you. He doesn't try to fix you. He just stays, present, grounded. From a Jungian perspective, this kind of presence can be seen as an expression of the transcendent function, an inner movement that bridges the conscious and the unconscious, enabling growth and transformation. When a man begins to truly care, something shifts. He is no longer just functioning from ego or logic. Something deeper starts to guide him, a silent inner force that seeks closeness, protection, connection. He doesn't keep score. He doesn't expect anything in return. He doesn't make a show of it. He just wants to know you're okay. Because when you're okay, something in him feels okay too. His well-being becomes quietly intertwined with yours. And that, in its own understated way, is one of the most profound declarations of love. As we explored an earlier, man who loves, truly loves, even if he's unaware of it or afraid to admit it, reveals himself in quiet, unconscious ways. In the lingering gaze, in his unwavering presence, in the way he just knows when to show up without fanfare. But love that is hidden doesn't remain silent forever. It stirs, it disrupts, it moves beneath the surface, and eventually begins to push through, in more emotionally charged ways. One of the clearest signs of this is unconscious jealousy. He might say it doesn't bother him. You're free to talk to whoever you want. He's not the jealous type. And on the surface that seems true. He doesn't ask questions. He doesn't make accusations. He doesn't show overt signs of possessiveness. But then something subtle shifts. You mention another man, a coworker, an old friend, someone you met. You laugh while telling a story that involves another guy. And though he stays quiet, you sense the change instantly. Maybe he goes still. Maybe he seems a little colder. Maybe the light in his eyes dims just a bit. He may become withdrawn or make a sarcastic comment that seems out of place. And afterward, he might pretend nothing happened. But you felt it. The air between you changed. That's not coincidence. That's not confusion. That's jealousy. Unspoken, unconscious, and very real. Carl Jung taught that the unconscious reacts powerfully to emotional triggers, especially those that touch parts of ourselves we have not yet integrated. A man who hasn't admitted his feelings for you might also not realize how deep those feelings run until the idea of losing you suddenly becomes real. In this moment, the unconscious erupts. His ego may try to suppress or rationalize it, but his behavior tells the truth. This kind of jealousy isn't about control. It isn't the toxic or manipulative kind. It's not about ownership. It's about emotion, raw, vulnerable emotion that rises before he can understand it. He may not even recognize it as jealousy. He may chalk it up to being tired or distracted. But underneath, something is being stirred. The fear of loss, the fear of being replaced, the fear of never having the chance to fully claim something that already matters deeply to him. This internal contradiction is often confusing, not just for you, but for him. He might say, "I'm not looking for anything serious," yet grow cold when you spend time with someone else. He might insist, "We're just friends," but bristle when you're affectionate with another man. That contradiction is the sign. If he truly felt nothing, he wouldn't care. But he does care. His reactions reveal what his words cannot. In Jungian psychology, this is seen as a clash between the conscious self, the persona he presents to the world, and the deeper, emotional self that's been pushed into the unconscious. When these parts are in conflict, the truth shows up in behavior before it reaches awareness. Jealousy, then, is not just about others. It's a mirror of what he fears to acknowledge. In himself, his own depth of feeling, his longing for closeness, his need to protect what matters. You'll notice that after these moments, he may retreat. He may pull back or change the subject. Sometimes even ghost you for a few days. Why? Because these emotional reactions can frighten him. They expose his inner world, and if he isn't ready to admit that world exists, he'll try to shut the door again. But it's too late. You already saw it. You felt it. And more importantly, he felt it, even if he won't say so. There's another place where unconscious love speaks louder than words: his body. You can often learn more from how a man moves around you than from anything he says, because body language is involuntary. It's spontaneous. It's the raw language of the soul. Jung believed that what is not made conscious will manifest in our behaviors, especially physical ones. That's why when a man is around the woman he unknowingly loves, his body often gives him away. Pay attention. Notice how his posture shifts the moment you enter a room. Maybe he straightens his back, adjusts his shirt, becomes more alert. Or maybe the opposite, he becomes awkward, fidgety, unsure of where to place his hands. This isn't disinterest, it's nervous energy. It's a subtle performance of presence, a desire to be seen, even when he doesn't know why. His feet often point toward you, even if his body is turned in another direction. Body language experts note that feet subconsciously indicate where our attention and attraction are directed. It's a primal cue, not controlled by logic or thought. The same is true of proximity. He finds excuses to stay near you. He's always sitting a little closer than necessary. Or when there's space, he somehow ends up in it. He may pretend it's random, but it's not. It's instinct. It's affection expressing itself in physical alignment. You may notice gentle, non-sexual touches. A brush of your arm, a casual touch on your back as you leave the room, fixing something in your hair. These are not acts of seduction. They're small, subconscious ways of creating connection, of closing the distance between you. They are tentative, tender, and telling. And then there's his smile. Not the polite smile he gives others, not the rehearsed one. The one that appears the moment you arrive. The one that looks like a mix of joy, warmth, surprise, and something deeper. Something like belonging. It's the smile of a man who has found a moment of peace in your presence. A kind of recognition. A return to something that feels like home. But not all signs are calm or sweet. Some are awkward, uncomfortable. He might seem unusually restless around you. Stumbling over words, playing with objects, rubbing the back of his neck, laughing a little too loud, going suddenly quiet. These are not signs of indifference. They are signs of emotional overload. He feels too much and doesn't know how to contain it. So it spills out in clumsy movements and strange silences. But make no mistake, this too is love speaking. From a Jungian view, all of these physical signs are expressions of the psyche, trying to integrate a new truth. His conscious mind may not yet understand what's happening, but his body does, his soul does. And in every spontaneous movement, his truth is showing itself to you. As we've seen, a man may not say he loves you. He might not write it in words or declare it in grand gestures. But his gaze, his presence, his unspoken jealousy, and his body language all speak volumes. These are the first expressions of a love, still hidden in the shadows of his unconscious. But there is another, more profound expression of that love, one that goes deeper than posture, deeper than silence. And that is emotional vulnerability. This is where the wall begins to crack. Many men have been conditioned to wear armor. It begins in childhood. Don't cry, be strong, man up. Emotional openness is often seen as weakness, and vulnerability becomes a risk most aren't willing to take. So they hide. They build personas, strong, competent, unaffected. But somewhere underneath that controlled surface lives a much more tender truth. And if you become the person he trusts, if you reach that space within him, he might begin to let you in. But it won't happen all at once. Maybe one day, in the middle of a casual conversation, he says something unexpectedly personal. He tells you about a moment in his past, something painful, a disappointment, a fear, a loss he never speaks of. He doesn't dramatize it. He doesn't even know why he's telling you. But he does. And as you listen, something shifts in the air between you. It's no longer about the words. It's about the trust that allowed them to be spoken. This is not a performance. It's not a man trying to impress you with his deep side. It's the opposite. It's unguarded, quiet, sincere, often without any expectation of comfort or advice. He simply shares because something in you makes him feel safe. And that safety is the clearest sign of how much you mean to him, whether or not he's ready to admit it. Carl Jung once said that the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. This is what happens when a man begins to open up emotionally. He is being transformed. Slowly, sometimes painfully, but genuinely. Not because he planned it, but because something in his unconscious has recognized that with you, he can be fully human. He may speak of his childhood, not the edited version, but the real one. Maybe he reveals the absence of a father, or the pressure he felt to succeed, or how he never felt good enough. He might tell you about a past heartbreak he's never healed from. He might say things like, "I've never told anyone this before," and you'll feel the weight of that trust. And perhaps one day he'll find the words, maybe not, but whether or not he ever says, "I love you," remember, feelings don't need permission to be real. What he doesn't say may be the most honest thing about him. What he reveals in his gaze, in his presence, in his jealousy, in his body, and in his quiet moments of vulnerability. That is where the truth lives. Love doesn't always speak in the language we expect. But if you listen closely, truly listen, you'll hear it. And sometimes you'll hear it before he does.